Mr. Ottercup, calling the roll, please.
Mr. Thacker? Ms. Weger? Ms. Thies? Mr. Norris?
Here.
Ms. Wilson? Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Here. Councilman Wilson should be here shortly. Moving on, corrections to the Journal of Proceeding meetings. May 4th, 2022, Sunshine meeting. I would ask you please review those meeting minutes for accuracy and note any corrections that need to be made. Please state the corrections that need to be made and reviewed, and we will proceed from there. There are no corrections that need to be made. I'd entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Motion on the floor to approve by Councilman Norris, and second by Councilman Thacker. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker? Ms. Weger? Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Loudermilk?
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we have the meeting minutes for the May 10th, 2022 meeting. Likewise, please review those for accuracy and note any corrections that need to be made to those meeting minutes. If the meeting minutes are correct as presented, I'd entertain a motion to approve. So moved. Motion on the floor by Councilman Thompson to approve, second by Councilman Wilson. Any questions from council? Having none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker?
Aye.
Ms. Weger? Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk?
Aye, motion carries. And lastly, we have the special call meeting minutes from our May 31st meeting. Please review those minutes for accuracy and note any corrections that should be made. If the minutes are correct as presented, I'd entertain a motion to approve at this time.
So moved.
Motion on the floor to approve by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Thompson. Any comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker? Ms. Weger? Mr. Norris?
Aye.
Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Loudermilk?
Aye, motion carries. Moving on, we have public comment. Public comment shall be limited to items not on tonight's agenda. Ask those who would like to offer public comment to please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and sign in at the podium. Anyone that would like to speak from the public at this time? Appears there is no one. Moving on, communications from elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county. Does anyone like to speak?
Just real quick, Council President Loudermilk, members of the council, some positive news. There was a ribbon cutting today in West Terre Haute for Valley Health Professionals. They have 5 nurses on staff, 2 doctors. They have mental health facilities and a pharmacy. That's hasn't happened since Dodge Drugs back in the 1940s and 50s. So for all of us that weren't on the council at the time or commissioners, Mr. Bramble, there was an interlocal agreement back in the day between Sisters of Providence that he found $30,000 in a dormant fund basically about 4 or 5 years ago. And that council and the commissioners appropriated that money to that project back then to kind of get that spurred and the inception of that project going. So just wanted to update you guys on that and let you know that's a good thing. And thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this time? Members of the council? Moving on, reports from committees. There are none. Resolutions and ordinances other than appropriations. First up, we have ROC 2022-027, amend Resolution 2022-05, and adopt Ordinance 2022-02, Treasurer, Investment of Public Funds. We've had discussion about this the last 2 months of meetings, as everyone should recall. We approved a resolution last month. It needs to be amended. There's a recommendation for it to be amended, as well as need to adopt an ordinance authorizing and approving the investment of public funds by the Vigo County Treasurer. And it looks like we need to determine an expiration date for both the resolution and the ordinance. So I open the floor at this time to handle those matters. Councilman Thompson?
I think the 2 dates, I personally think the date as far as the expiration makes more sense at the end of the term. Should be the 12/31 of 24.
Right. And I would agree with that. What we had adopted last month was a resolution. The way it currently stands, if we do not amend Resolution 2022-05, the ordinance would have an expiration of May 10, 2026. If we amend the resolution from last month, then we need to, in theory, set the expiration for the ordinance the same, which presumably would be December 31st, 2024. So with that, I would entertain a motion to amend the resolution. We have an amended resolution before us, so I think essentially we just need to have a motion to approve the amended resolution as it stands right now. The December 31st, 2024 language is present. Councilman Thacker? So I think it's just as simple as to make a motion to approve the amended, because we have an amended document before us, so we don't have to actually amend it on the floor. I think that's probably, is that accurate, Mr. Effner? Okay, thank you, Councilman Thacker. So a motion to approve by Councilman Thacker, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Thompson. And that is for the language on page 4 of your booklet. Any questions or comments from council before we vote? Having none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. So then on page 6, you have before you ordinance 2022-02. As you will see in section 4, expiration date, the way it currently states, the expiration date is May 10th, 2026, and that was based upon what we had approved last month with the resolution. So as Councilman Thompson had stated earlier, it would seems to make more sense that this ends at the term of the treasurer, which would be December 31st, 2024. So if the council so desires, I would entertain a motion to amend that expiration date to December 31st, 2024. Councilman Norris?
President Loudermilk, I'd like to make a motion to amend the expiration date of ordinance 2022-02 to December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. So we have a motion to amend by Councilman Norris, a second by Councilman Thompson. Any questions before we vote on this amendment? Having none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Now I'd entertain a motion to approve the amended ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor to approve the amended ordinance by Councilman Thompson, second by Councilman Wilson. Any questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Did it skip you? Ms. Wilson?
Aye.
Motion carries. Still, thank you. Moving on, we have before us ROC 2022-28 Annual Tax Abatement Compliance Review. You should have before you an insert titled Annual Abatement Review, June 2022. Should be a table with the company names in the left-hand column, followed by resolution numbers, property type, employee estimates by the SB1, employee actual, estimate, SB1, and actual. You should have all that information before you. We reviewed some of this last week, discussed it. I think maybe the appropriate thing to do, although maybe lengthy, but the appropriate thing to do would be to handle these individually. Offer discussion for each. So with that, first up, it's Advix Manufacturing Indiana LLC. It is a 2012 abatement for personal property. As we discussed last week, our responsibility is to determine whether or not we believe these companies are substantially compliant with the abatement that was granted to them. And if we deem that they are not, then a document will be filed and sent to the company asking them to come in and state why they are not substantially compliant. So I would offer discussion at this time about Advix Manufacturing and entertain whatever motion the council has an appetite for. Councilman Thacker?
Yeah, I tried to look over this in the last week since we had it presented to us, and I think this one shows a potential problem is that they made a commitment to add 36, but they've only added 2 under this. But when I look at this, they're in their last year of a 10-year tax abatement, so I don't see the need at this time to bring them in, so I think they are compliant as much as they can be. I don't know that we're going to make much difference at this time.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I guess maybe what might offset that some is the fact that the estimate was 5.2 million for the project cost, and they were actually at 17.3. So, that's good from our perspective with the taxes that will come in at 100%
Sure.
moving forward. So,
Yeah.
I guess that is a plus.
Yes, it is.
About 2.1 million excess what was estimated. So, but I agree with what you're looking at, Todd, as well.
So with that being said, I'd say at this point, I think they're substantial compliance and we should move forward. Motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Yeah, sure, please do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't have the CF1 in front of me, but I believe that's where the number of this information came from, the CF1, and so they're reporting that. I think I don't think that it would do any good to bring them in to have them say that there's been, economy's had a downturn and they haven't added every job, but they had more value than that, as Chairman Lattimore said.
Okay. Ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson. Aye. Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Next up, we can look at this and press that as a package, I suppose. You have before you Resolution 2012-08, real property, as well as 2012-09, personal property. We can look at those as a whole. And I'd open the floor for comments and discussion at this time. Councilman Wilson?
Just for clarification, this is a 10-year also, so it was from 2012, so it's about to expire in August also, and September. The concerns I have are what you were talking about, the project cost versus the actual being substantially less, it appears. But the salaries, if I'm reading it correctly, the estimate was 2.4 million and the actual salaries were 8.8?
Yes, according
With
to
only
this.
54 additional employees rather than the 80 they've got 2 months left in this abatement. Again, I see kind of no point bring. Oh, I'm sorry, okay, well, then 6 more months and it's, or I'm assuming.
On real property, you're looking at improvements in their structural. Normally, those could possibly be 1-year projects, 2-year projects, and so the abatement may not kick in for like 3 or 4 years. In personal property, they have the ability to do abatements in pools. So we can, when the new project starts, they have a pool of personal property. 4 or 5 years later, they can add another pool. So it's a little bit hard. I cannot tell you that that will definitely be over in 2022 or 2023.
Yes, that was the part of the clarification that I
Right.
needed, thank. Would it be on the CF one?
No. It's a report we're needing from the auditor's office. But it's a little bit harder to tell on personal property because there's a lot more moving parts to personal property abatement than there is a real property abatement, with the ability to add equipment during the term.
Thank you.
And the research I have, that their personal property's up on 7/24/22, and they're, again, I believe that they're substantial compliance, even though, you know, their addition of 80, but they've added 54, but they have had more on the salary, and the project cost, you got a estimated value of $7 million, so I think they're a substantial compliance. I would make a motion in that fashion.
Is, just for clarification, is that motion for both the real and
Yes.
personal property?
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it would be for real and personal.
Thank you. So a motion on the floor by Councilman Thacker and a second by Councilwoman Wager. Any questions or comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries, thank you. Next, we have Tag Leaf Industries, Inc. 2 separate personal property abatements. One is a 2012 abatement, the other is a 2018 abatement.
The 2018 abatement, you will not need to review because that equipment will not be in production till July of this year. It will not be eligible for abatement till 2023, payable 2024.
Thank you. So we just have the first one listed, the 2012-10, personal property. I'll offer this time for discussion and comments regarding that.
I have also provided you with a letter that came from Tag Leaf after multiple discussions with them this past week.
But the letter is to do with the 2018 run, right, correct?
It is, but kind of updates you all together. So.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on there about the 2012. President Loudermilk, when they came in last year to have a hearing, Tag Leaf was one of them that did come in, I believe. That was one of my first meetings, and I believe they addressed the issues at that point. And it's ironic that they show that they met the additional, but they lost 90 people on their retention. And then they don't go ahead, and it doesn't have completion of the actual, of course, that's personal, which that's self-assessed, I understand. But I don't see that they completed that on the CF1. So. Yeah, that's got to do with that 2018 abatement. This one's the 2012 one's the only one. So, whatever everybody else feels, I know that they came in last year and was very forthcoming and shared with us their struggles. And I agree with that. They're not going to be in production until July on this 2018 one, which it's not going to have it's not going to have a real estate because they did not change the footprint. They just use the existing buildings. So I think if we found them last year substantially compliant last year with this, after coming and talking to them, I think we're at that same point and we'll probably talk to them once we get the CF1 on next year's. So at this time, I'd make a motion that they're substantially compliant.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilman Wager. Comments from council? Having none, I'd ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries. Next, we have 2 personal property tax abatements for Verdeco Recycling Midwest, Inc., 2014-01, 2019-08. Please review those. And offer this time to discuss each of those. And hear whatever motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Thacker.
I would say that on both of these, the 2014-01 and 2019-08, both of them are personal. They have added the additional employees, as they said they were, or exceeded. And with personal being self-assessed, I believe that they're in compliance,
Thank you.
for both of those.
Second.
So we have a motion for compliance on 2014-01 and 2019-08 by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilman Thompson. Any questions or comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Now I have before us Casey's Marketing Company, a real and personal property tax abatement for resolution numbers 2014-03 on the real and 2014-12 on the personal. Please review. I'd offer this time for comments and a motion. Council so chooses.
President Loudermilk, I'd like to make a motion of Casey Marketing is in compliance with being that they added additional 213 over the 185 they projected, and they submitted their filing. I would say they're in compliance.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor that Casey's Marketing Company is in compliance with 2014-03, 2014-12. Motion that they're in compliance by Councilman Thacker, a second by Councilman Thompson. Any questions or comments from council? Having none, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Weger, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye, motion carries, thank you. Select Genetics LLC. Again, we have a real and personal property tax abatement 2017. For this time for discussion on each.
And if somebody else wants to make these motions, they can, but
Go for it.
I would say that Select Genetics LLC has met the criteria I look at with adding more than they said they would on the additional, and in compliance, I would make a motion that they are substantially in compliance.
Second.
So we have the motion by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilman Wilson. Questions or comments by council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr.
Aye.
Thacker,
Oh, aye. Sorry, I was looking at the next one.
Ms. Weger, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr.
Yeah,
Loudermilk.
I think
Aye,
I'm gonna
motion
give them a
carries.
that We'd like to come and see them.
Are you ready now, Todd?
Yeah. And I have a little different take on this one, if I could. I think on this one this is a more recent one in 2018, and that they did not meet substantially, 143 is not substantial of 200. I would actually like for him to come in and talk to them on Saturn Pet Care. And would make the motion that we invite them to come and present.
Sure, Councilman Wager.
I think that, they might be in the same boat that a lot of companies are having a problem hiring people who line up for like their 8 hour in. But that could be,
No, and it says on there they're $12 an hour, so I'm sure that is correct. And so, I mean,
they might want to understand that.
and I think if we're just doing our due diligence, if we bring them in, I'm not saying that we ultimately will revoke it, but I think,
All might work.
I think I'd like the exercise to see them come see us. That's me, just me personally.
If you note below the table, there is a notation there.
Oh.
That their initial petition, that they said that it would take them 5 years
Oh,
to
I
reach
didn't
their
see that.
employment numbers. So I
Oh.
think that they were at least forthcoming with that in the
Oh,
beginning.
I didn't see that. Okay.
Well, that's for the one below there, the $12 an hour, actually. That's the next one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Future X. Oh, I'm sorry, I looked at the
No,
wrong
it's,
one.
yeah, it's the one
A
below.
lot of lines there.
Also in my discussions with Representative Saturn, they added that, they were looking to add a third and fourth line, and they're currently at capacity. And their production started in April of 2021, so production's not been quite, it's been a little over a year, I guess.
Maybe if they'd used local people, they might have got it done in compliance a little sooner. So that's my motion.
So what is the? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor for noncompliance by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilwoman Wager. Any comments or questions from council?
Yeah, we just wanted to come in and talk, but at this time, I don't think they're in compliance. Not saying that they won't be, but at this time, I can't. Maybe have a problem.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that you're not substantially compliant.
Yeah, I think we had to say either there's exit compliant. I don't know, I was doing it.
Well, yes, I think at this stage, you must find that they are not substantially compliant, and it's not due to factors beyond their control and asking us to come in. Hearing date must be set within 30 days of the date that they are sent a letter advising them that that's your finding. Okay, so, yes, I think you're okay. If they're non-compliant, we just set a hearing date.
Here's what,
You say within 30 days?
how about all their information provided?
Don't like about panic.
They would have to come in within 30 days after the date of the notice.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Mrs. Miller, did you say that they stated they were at full production at this time?
They said they were in production April 21 is April 2021 is when it started, and that they're currently at capacity and they're looking at adding additional lines.
Well, if they're over capacity, but they said they needed 200 employees, they're at 143, they're 57 off.
I would note as we're kind of in a, maybe in a thinking period here, I would note that the real property estimated project cost was 13.8 million, and the actual was nearly double at 26, almost 3 million, so it is substantial. And that value later is going to double as well, it appears. Maybe something to consider. Did you have something, Mr. Effner, that you were going to add? Oh, okay.
No, I think, there's a motion
Okay, sure.
needs to be voted on. If not, we
Right.
can have a motion the other way.
So is there? Any other comments or questions from council?
My intent was is if there's some questions that we have, if they come and talk to us like the ones that did last year, then we can vote to see if they're in compliance with that, within their control at that point. So that's the only reason I made the motion the way I did.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Swager, Mr. Norris,
Nay.
Ms. Wilson,
No.
Ms. Thompson, Loudermilk.
Nay. Same. 6. Councilman Wilson?
I'd like to make a motion that they are in compliance based on the assessed valuation versus estimated, and based on the fact that up front they told us it was gonna take them 5 years to reach their employment goals. I mean, would that preclude, if we voted that they are in compliance, could we still not call and get answers that may satisfy Mr. Thacker? Or is that only possible if they're not in
I'd
compliance?
say in theory you could do that. Communication could be sent out, but I think that was maybe the intent of
Yeah, I
of
did to begin with.
Councilman Thacker's motion.
I think they are in compliance, and I'd like to make a motion stating that. On both the real and the personal.
Did you?
I didn't hear exactly what you said, Mr. Loudermilk, but I think, yeah, if you find that they are compliant, then that resolves the matter for this year, okay? I don't think you can come back and say otherwise later. There's certainly nothing that would prevent you from making contact with them and getting answers to questions.
And if it's even further askew next year, then we're,
Yeah, you'll
we could do
review it
something
again
different
next year
then.
as well.
But being that they are, their projected cost and their actual valuation is higher, and they did tell us up front that they were gonna be 5 years out on employment, I think they're in compliance. And I'd like to make a motion in that regard.
I'll second.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wilson, a second by Councilman Norris. Before we vote, I'd say, Councilman Wilson and Councilman Thacker each had valid points, for sure. I'm in, Councilman Thacker kind of touched on it briefly, but I'm not so much concerned with some of the numbers we see before us right now as I am in how this all rolled out and the guarantees that were made for local labor and our people to get the work down there, and it wasn't satisfied like we had hoped for. And with that, I'm hopeful that we can, as we've discussed for months, find a way to get this RBO cleaned up so we don't continue to have these problems, because, I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to Councilman Thacker. It's just hurting our local people when that happens, in my opinion, and all that money leaves town. And I think we're kind of we're in a tough spot right now with one that isn't for review tonight, and still dynamics that our local labor's having some heartaches with right now. So I think we need to figure out how we want to handle this RBO and the scoring system moving forward so that this doesn't continue to happen to this county and to our local workers. But even though I'm not happy with the way Saturn Pet Care had rolled out every aspect of this, I understand both sides, but that's kind of where I stand with my feelings about the actual review of the abatement by itself at this time, since we don't have any other recourse for what happened when labor was on site. Any other comments, Councilman Thacker?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Is my only rationale is if we say they're in compliance, which that's what the motion is, and I can respect that, then we're saying that then they don't have to come and talk to us. I think it would be smart if they did want to come and talk to us, or if somebody wanted to meet with them. I was just trying to put them in the position where they could be in compliance after we had a conversation with them. That's all I was trying to do. So,
Sure.
yeah, I respect everybody's position on this, and there's no heartache with me. I'm just trying to look at it mathematically on all of these and try to come up with a solution. So, I'm good.
Any additional comments? So we have a motion and a second on the floor. To ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Nay.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have Future X, a real property tax abatement 2019-02, and also personal property tax abatement 2019-01. You have those numbers before you?
Yeah, President Loudermilk, on this one, I saw that they said that they had 29 and they were going to, and they say they retained 42, so that's more than they retained, but then their math is a little bit off because they said they were going to add 8, but they only added 4, but in fact, I think they probably did add more than what they suggested, so I would say, other than their math being wrong, I'd say they're in compliance.
I would agree with all that.
Second.
So a motion on the floor by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilwoman Wilson. On both.
Yeah.
That's 2019-02, 2019-01. Any comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. We now have Midwest Investments LLC, Resolution 2019-16, a real property tax abatement. Excuse me. You have those numbers before you?
The one below it, D&D Automation, that's the
Yes, that's
personal
part of it as well,
purpose.
isn't it?
It's the same organization.
Yes. So we can review those together. So there's a personal property tax abatement, 2019-17, under the company name D&D Automation, Inc. So we can include each of those here.
On these, I had the similar issue with addition, and I don't see it coming out quite right. And they retained 10, and they said they retained 11. Additional 3, they said no additionals. And, of course, the personal one is self-evaluated, I see the number on it, but they're estimated at project cost at $547,000. Project cost was $285,000 with the assessed value at $285,000. I can't say good conscience they're in compliance. Maybe they could explain it to us if we brought them in, but that's the same logic I had with the Saturn Pet Care. So at this time, I don't think they're in compliance. And so I'd make a motion that we'd like to have them come and talk to us.
Second.
So we have a motion on the floor of not being in compliant by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilman Wilson. If I remember correctly, this is the one in which the footprint has not changed down there. Is that correct? It was supposed to be an addition?
I believe, yes, it's one of them.
Okay. So in that, just to be clear, that motion of not being in compliance is for both the real and personal?
Yes, yeah, if they are the same entity with different names, I didn't realize that when I was looking over.
So we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any additional comments or questions?
If we are going to ask them, this, again, if we're gonna ask them to come in, are we going to have to call a special call to have within the 30 days, or we're gonna do it in August?
I don't think that's necessary. It just has to be, the hearing date must be within 30 days of the notice.
We can wait till July to send the notice for the August, okay, that's just clarification, thank you.
Fair enough. Any additional comments or questions?
Does that need to be included in the resolution, or in the recommendation?
Any?
Grabbing the word. Does that need to be included in the motion?
The date
The
of the,
date to push back to?
will it have to be addressed, because I'll need to find out if you want sunshine or, would it be sunshine and then you could vote on it the following meeting, or do you want to vote on it at the same time? That would be,
My recommendation would be to have them come to the Sunshine meeting and then vote at the regular meeting in August.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's probably the preferred. That way, if we have additional questions after they present to us at the Sunshine, we can follow up with emails or correspondence as needed. Does that sound fair to the council? So we have a motion, and a second on the floor. Additional comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. And lastly, we have GL Holding LLC, which is Greenleaf, and also Greenleaf Inc. for real and personal property tax abatements. Each are 2020-07 for the resolution number. Please review, make your comments, and I would entertain whatever motion the council has the appetite for.
Make a motion they're in compliance at this time. This one's so new that I don't believe we've gotten like the assessed value on it. And after talking to the assessors, this is one of them where they have filed it timely, and then they go in and have made an appeal to it, and then they adjust it. So that's why we don't have all the numbers. But at this time, I think they're compliant, but we'll just have to review it later.
Motion, we have a second?
second?
Motion on the floor by Councilman Thacker, second by Councilman Norris. Any questions or comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager, Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And that will conclude the tax abatement compliance reviews. Moving on, we have ROC 2022-24, resolution of reallocation of existing appropriation 2022-07, Vigo County Health Department, out-of-series transfer.
This is the immunization grant that we discussed last week. And it's where we decided that it would work, that the funds could be better utilized by putting them into professional services than having a full-time employee. With health insurance, that's never been utilized. So it's a better plan on the usage of funds. This is a voucher down grant, so it isn't as if we're asking for money. It's we're asking for permission to spend the money in a different way.
So it's very clean. Any questions or comments from council? If there are none, I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Wilson, a second by Councilman Thompson. Any comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Weger,
Aye.
Mr. Norris. Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We have one more item. Joni, then we'll be back to you.
All right.
ROC 2022-29, Resolution 22-08, County Council, Resolution of County Council of Vigo County, Indiana, for the express purpose of a balanced budget.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Wilson.
I guess it escaped me a little bit that Marie wouldn't be here tonight. And with this being regarding the budget and with her being on the budget committee with us, I don't think it's fair to her that we go ahead and vote without her being here. So I would like to make a motion that we table this resolution.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wilson to table at this time due to Councilwoman Thies's absence, and Councilman Thacker seconded that. Additional comments or questions from council? Ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Weger,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on, ordinances relating to appropriations. Additional appropriation 2022-19, ROC 2022-23, Vigo County Health Department, purchase of 2 new vehicles. Ms. Wise is here. She spoke about this last month. I'm sorry, I apologize, last week. And the request is to replace 2 vehicles that are over 24 years old, with substantial use. Any questions or from council for Ms. Wise? Councilman Thacker.
Yeah, hey, Joni, I went down and took you up on your offer to go down and see Mike, and took a tour of the facilities, saw the vehicles that they use and what they're using for, and I asked about the 4-wheel drive, and he explained to me the need for that. The vehicles that they were replacing were 4-wheel drive, and they use them in the winter months as well. And only thing he did say to me is that if it was up to the council, he would be fine with V6 versus a V8. So, I mean, I think if you look at that, we might save a few $1,000s, and it may do better in this time of gas prices as well. So, only thing I would ask is if when you go to order those, that they would go with the V6.
Sure.
That would be it. And so it was nice to get down there. I didn't realize you guys are in a building that used to be a train trolley repair. So I learned something.
That's that clean and that efficient.
Yeah.
You know, we repair all of our vehicles
Yeah.
there, from balancing tires. We also do that for the maintenance department.
Yeah.
It just saves us saves the county a lot of money.
Yep. You want that in the form of motion?
I didn't know if you were doing a motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, I can, I just,
You've
that
done
was,
so
I
many
just,
tonight, Todd.
yeah, well, I just
You're on a roll, I thought you were doing great.
steal everybody's thunder. I
On a
thought maybe
roll.
somebody else might have a comment about the vehicles or something, so I would put that in the form of a motion. I make a motion that we move to allow the replacement of 2 vehicles, and those to be V6 full-size trucks.
So we have a motion to approve with a caveat from Councilman Thacker and a second by Councilman Thompson. Additional comments, questions from council? Ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President Loudermilk?
Yes.
Can you clarify who made the second on that one?
Councilman
There's
Thompson.
2, okay.
We now have additional appropriation 2022-20, ROC 2022-25, Vigo County Health Department reimbursement to general fund.
This is the $300,000 for the township fire departments to have the Stryker Medical Lucas chest compression devices out of our reimbursement for giving COVID vaccines.
Is everyone clear? Councilman Wilson?
I move that we approve this.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Wilson, a second by Councilman Norris. Additional comments from council?
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Joni. That was very
Absolutely.
thoughtful and generous in that meeting to offer that up. That's very helpful for the county and for a very good cause. I know the fire departments are very excited about that equipment, and I think we're all convinced those devices are going to save lives. in
I
the near
agree.
term. So it's good stuff, for sure. I'd ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We now have salary ordinance 2022-16, ROC 2022-26, Vigo County Health Department, add employee and stipend.
I met with the council administrator along with the deputy administrator of the health department, Amanda Bales, and after reviewing our revenues, they don't support a full-time employee at this time. And so what we are suggesting that you consider is a stipend similar to what we do for the environmental health division supervisor. Because we only have the Pat B as the highest one in that classification, which is what all the environmentalists are. So to financially reward the supervisor for EHS, we did the stipend, and we're suggesting something similar for the director of nursing, or team leader, if you want to call it that.
Questions from council?
So that I understand, are you going to add another person and the stipend? Or
No,
just the stipend?
just the
to promote
stipend.
somebody?
So we would have the 3 existing positions, and one of the positions would assume the responsibility of what would be considered a director of nursing or a team leader, if we wanted to define it at that. The current salary for a Pat B is $45,854, and the stipend that was given to the EHS supervisor for 2022 was $4,810.02. So it would be, whoever assumes that responsibility would receive the stipend for the responsibilities.
So do we need to amend
Amend it,
this
yeah.
What are you
salary
asking for?
ordinance to reflect that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we amend the salary ordinance 2022-16 to only include adding a stipend of $4,810 and not adding one person.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman Thacker.
Can you hold on just a minute? On your amendment where you're adding the stipend, I think it should be clear the stipend is for director of nursing, so it's in that ordinance. Correct. That way it's very clear what it's for.
Okay, so I would like to make an amendment to the salary ordinance 2022-16 to only add the stipend of $4,810 $1,410
stipend
to
for
the
director of
director of
nursing.
nursing for the health department.
And what about the effective date?
they're not
Is that,
gonna
are you
I'd
still
like that affected by July the 15th.
July, so you would like to
Effective
amend
July
section
15th.
3 to be July 15th instead of June 15th?
Correct.
So is everyone clear? Councilman Wager?
How shall we call, what shall we call this stipend? Add stipend for,
And directing of nurse,
Yeah.
director of nursing.
Council-
we don't have a director of nursing,
But we do.
but we do.
That's the intent, is that,
I got that, but we're not having one, right? You will have one?
Yes.
Okay.
This stipend makes it so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the motion on the floor is to amend salary ordinance 2022-16 to only include the addition of the stipend of $4,810 for the director of nursing with an effective date of July 15th, 2022.
July 15th.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Wilson. There's a second? Second by Councilman Thompson. This is a motion to amend. Questions from council? Ask for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Now I would entertain a motion to approve the amended ordinance as presented. Councilwoman Wilson.
So moved.
Motion to approve the amended ordinance 2022-16. Second by Councilman Norris. So we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Norris. Any questions from council?
So we approved the salaries, now we're approved appropriation?
no.
No, we amended.
the ordinance.
Oh, we amended, oh, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we
okay.
amended. Now
I
we're
just-
voting on the amended ordinance.
All right, I was looking, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So this is a vote on the amended ordinance. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker,
Aye.
Ms. Swager,
Aye.
Mr. Norris,
Aye.
Ms. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And lastly, we have additional appropriation ordinance 2022-21, ROC 2022-26, Vigo County Health Department.
You have to fund the, oh,
Oh, so. This would just be the 4810, right?
well, you have a half a year, so I don't know if you wanted to do the 2405. Yeah, so a half a year would be 2405 for payroll, 184 for social security. It is, I'm sorry.
Talking to
Half
the
a
right
year,
time.
2405, social security FICA 184, perf 342, and 0 for insurance, for a total of 2931.
We
I
need
can
those
give you a
big- Read them
copy.
again.
Payroll 2405, FICA 184, perf 342, for a total of 2931.
Is everyone clear on that? And that's reflective of the amendment to the previous salary ordinance. I entertain a motion. Councilman Norris?
President Loudermilk, I make a motion to approve the additional appropriation ordinance 2022
To
amend the additional appropriation ordinance 2022-21 with the following figures: payroll salaries of 2405, FICA of 184, perf of 342, insurance of 0, for a total of 2931 to reflect the 6 months, the remaining 6 months of this year.
Thank you. So there is a motion on the floor to amend by Councilman Norris and second by Councilman Thompson. Any questions from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker.
Aye.
Ms. Wager.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Now I entertain a motion to approve the amended ordinance 2022-21. Councilman Norris.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Councilman Norris, second by Councilman Thompson. Comments from council? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Thacker. Ms. Wager.
Aye.
Mr. Norris.
Aye.
Ms. Wilson.
Aye.
Mr. Thompson. Mr. Loudermilk.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Honorary resolutions, there are none. Resolutions relating to fiscal policies of the council. There are none. There are no appointments. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second, third, fourth.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Norris, second by Councilman Wager. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
He was trying to cut you off. He's still ahead of you, Travis.